What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. In the stillness of May 11th night, something peculiar happened. Vladimir Putin, the man at the center of Europe's most devastating conflict in decades, chose to address the world and his people in the quietest hours of the morning. At 1 a.m., when most heads rested on pillows and the sounds of everyday life has paused, he summoned a journalist to a Kremlin briefing and announced a bold idea. Let's guys return to Istanbul for direct peace talks. No preconditions.
We propose to start them immediately next Thursday, May 15th, in Istanbul, where they were previously held and where they were interrupted.
Why 1 a.m.? Well, because that's exactly the time when Putin makes uncomfortable announcements for him. That's the time when most people are once again sleeping, so not too many of them will hear him humiliating himself. That's exactly the same strategy he used when there were very first combat activities on the territory of Russia 2-3 years ago, done by the Freedom of Russia Legion and Russian Volunteer Corps. That is the same strategy he implemented when Prigozhin betrayed him. That's exactly the same what we are seeing right now. In other countries around the world, the leaders are waiting for the prime time to make big announcements. In Russia, it is, well, as you can see, precisely the opposite. When Putin says something at 1 a.m. and then quietly disappears, this is when we have to listen extra carefully. It felt like an unexpected bonus act after the show nobody asked for, a diplomatic pirouette meant to confuse rather than to solve. But besides the obvious, why really stage such theatrics in the dead of the night? Is this an earnest gesture of reconciliation or yet another act in a long-running drama of broken promises and strategic gambits? So today, let's talk about the main actors of this telenovela and expose the grim reality behind the grand declarations. Let's see if Putin is genuine this time or if he plays the very same game everyone knows already about. We will also mention Zelensky's new personal challenge to Putin and try to guess whether he is ready to accept it or not. Picture this. You're quietly asleep when your phone starts buzzing with the news alerts and messages from your friends. Breaking news! Putin is to resume Istanbul peace talks. He is serious this time. He wants them directly between Russia and Ukraine. Though the spectacle is almost comical, peace talks proposal at an hour when even nightclub bouncers are yawning. It is the same feeling when you are lying in bed, already about to sleep, and then thinking about an uncomfortable situation in the past and then suddenly realize, aha, this is how I should have better responded. This will teach that punk middle school a lesson. and yeah. Yet this is Vladimir Putin's style of statecraft, crafting attention through the unexpected. His 1 a.m. briefings was not a slip of timing, but a calculated move, ensuring maximum global intrigue. He spoke of rekindling talks held in April 2022, just weeks after the invasion surge began on February 24th. Back then, negotiators from Kiev and Moscow sat across the table in Istanbul, flanked by Turkish mediators, hopefully that diplomacy might halt a tide of violence. But the talks dissolved into nothingness, with Russia demanding Ukraine withdrawal to pre-2014 borders and Kiev insisting on sovereignty over all of its territory. Makes sense. Nobody cared about soon peace anymore, and people prepared for long confrontation. Now, 3 years later, Putin claims a fresh start, no preconditions, he repeated, as if shrugging off the very demands of he once imposed. This midnight show carries echoes of past maneuvers. Surprise ceasefires declared at odd hours, impromptu referendums, sudden troop withdrawals, followed by swift redeployments. It is a choreography designed to keep opponents off balance, to force reactions rather than foster dialogue. By invoking Erdogan's name as the guarantor in Istanbul, Putin signals respect for Turkey's broker role while subtly reminding Ankara of its utility. He hints at extracting concessions inside channels, economic deals, grain corridors, or attacks on Kurdish forces. All the while, ordinary citizens on both sides remain in complete darkness, unsure if this time it is genuine or if this is just another empty promise of Putin. Personally, we think he is just a little bit more genuine this time. He really kinda wants to talk in Turkey, have more serious and direct involvement, but it will not unfortunately result in anything meaningful. The reason for this is to show mostly Trump and his administration that Putin is doing another big or even bigger step towards peace. Even though the peace is still far away, but we are getting there, this is the kind of mentality. By the way, guys, let us know down below in the comments what you think. And now let's talk about the reaction of other countries and alliances to this proposal. Just hours before Putin's nocturnal proposal, a quartet of European heavyweights, France, the United Kingdom, Germany and Poland, announced their own plan. A 30-day unconditional ceasefire starting this Monday. They stood shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine's President Zelensky, calling for silence on the front lines to allow diplomacy to flourish. In a show of transatlantic unity, they even secured the elusive approval of the US President Donald Trump by phone, cementing their proposal with Washington's stamp. This initiative was not pulled from thin air. Instead, it was built on months of European deliberation, urgent pleas from humanitarian organizations, and the grinding desperation of war-exhausted populations. It read like an invitation to cease the bloodshed, at least for a month, then to rebuild shattered towns, deliver aid, and negotiate terms grounded in reality rather than rhetoric. And yet, Putin's response was conspicuous in its omission. He neither embraced this European ceasefire nor acknowledged its existence in his midnight address. I mean, there is simply no way he ignored it simply because he never heard about it being proposed. War-related news end up on Putin's desk in most urgent pile, so not hearing something is, well, clearly not an excuse. His only agreement to ceasefires was this 3-day truce that Russia declared for Victory Day's commemorations. And yes, as you guys know, this was unilateral, one-sided proposal by Putin himself, for which he also agreed all by himself. It's like me saying, alright guys, I will upload another episode of my Thank God It's Monday podcast on Monday, and then actually doing it. Did I plan it all along? Yes. Did I fulfill my promise? I did. Any more questions? By the way, if you missed this episode, I'm talking there with Paul from Combat Veteran Reacts about his actual combat experience, including the one in Ukraine. It is definitely worth a watch, so if you haven't already, go ahead and watch it after this episode, and let us know down below also what you think. So yeah, back to Putin. The result of his midnight address to the nation. A diplomatic standoff where a ceasefire talk became an abstract ideal rather than a tangible path. On one side, European capitals wielded solidarity like a banner, while on the other, Moscow treated truce proposals as mere pawns in a much larger game. Civilians remained trapped in a violent limbo, questioning whether these diplomatic maneuvers would ever silence the guns. The contradictions, however, ran deeper. Europe demanded an immediate cessation of hostilities, yet refused to explore Ukraine joining NATO or ceding territory. The red lines that mirror Moscow's own non-negotiable points. Russia insisted on neutrality for Ukraine, while European leaders insisted on Ukraine's right to self-determination. Each party declared a willingness to talk, but the table remained shaky, the rules unwritten, and the deadline not even close to be established. In this chess match, every ceasefire offer is both a shield for advancing armies and a sword for political leverage. And now, for fair journalistic purposes, we also have to mention what supposed Putin's allies think about all these political shenanigans. Let's talk about this right now. While the ceasefire debate boiled, European leaders sharpened their sanctions toolkits. Emmanuel Macron of France warned of massive sanctions prepared and coordinated, with the United States obviously if Russia breached any new truce. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hailed Europe's solidarity, declaring that the continent must stand firm or risk inviting further aggression. New German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk spoke in unison. No guns must fire before talks commence, and any delay could spell deeper confusion. They framed sanctions not as punishment but as a protective measures designed to squeeze Moscow's economy, disrupt military supply chains, and undercut the oligarchic networks that bankrolled the war. Yet as Brussels and Washington sharpened their tooth, Moscow extended a hand to unexpected corners of the globe. Putin, for example, welcomed delegates from China, Venezuela, Vietnam, Zimbabwe, Burkina Faso and the Palestinian Authority to his Victory Day festivities. And this was basically him flaunting Russia's enduring alliances in the global south. It was a geopolitical maneuver. Sanctions may bite, but Russia still has friends willing to buy its oil, train its soldiers, and lend diplomatic cover in international forums. This balancing act, simultaneously threatening economic chokeholds while courting alternative partners, reveals Putin's unfortunately long play. It is a reminder that global politics is not just about European and North American affairs, but a tapestry woven with threats from every continent. In the economic realm, the ruble's fluctuations, energy contract renegotiations, and Moscow's pivot to Asian markets underline a strategic shift. Europe's energy embargoes forced Germany to scramble for liquid natural gas, while China's continued purchase of Russia's the same gas injects liquidity in its emptying budget. Sanctions may shake Russia's high-tech industries, but Beijing's tech transfers and India's agricultural deals keep the machine humming. For Western leaders, the challenge is clear. Calibrate sanctions to maximize pressure without pushing Russia wholly into an Eastern embrace. Like it or not, unfortunately, there is still something that they need from this country, and that is the biggest dilemma of world politicians. Amid this diplomatic madness, Volodymyr Zelensky placed a personal bet. He challenged Putin and offered him to meet personally in Turkey on May 15th, provided Moscow first agrees to European ceasefire. He framed it as a very important signal to the world, a chance to turn headlines into historic breakthroughs. On social media he wrote, "I will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday. Personally, I hope that this time Putin will not look for excuses." Literal his quote. It was a move steeped in both courage and risk. Zelensky knows that a potential handshake in Istanbul could catalyze momentum for rebuilding, for prisoner exchanges, and for establishing safe corridors. But he also knows how Putin's empty promises have littered previous peace efforts. And why should not Putin even agree, be he a normal person? That's a theoretical question, but let's try to answer it. A ceasefire that he wants to achieve direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Zelensky literally says yes to all that of Putin requirements and says, "Alright, just be a man, let's talk face to face then. Let's see if you are ready for what you want." And even if Putin disagrees, Zelensky once again emerges as a victor in our opinion. This is the same thing when Putin offered a couple days ceasefire in the past, and Ukraine countered it with 30 days ceasefire, twice. And both times Putin, who wanted to seem as the one making the first step towards peace, ended up looking like a clown who cannot keep his promises. Though public reaction in Kiev and beyond was mixed, unfortunately. To some, Zelensky's openness to dialogue despite relentless missile strikes underscores his unstatesmanship and resolve to find the best solution for his people. To others, it felt naive, a leap into literally the lion's den without armor, risking giving undue legitimacy to a leader accused of horrible human rights abuses. Ukrainian civil society groups voice caution as well. Talk is talk, but lasting peace demands enforceable guarantees, robust monitoring mechanisms, and accountability for war crimes. Meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines questioned whether their sacrifices would be leveraged into mere propagandistic photoshoots. Zelensky's gamble also played into global narratives. Western capitals applauded his willingness to engage Russia directly, while insisting on clear conditions. Trump's envoy, for example, retired Lieutenant General Kit Kellogg, urged that ceasefires should come before talks, preserving Ukraine's bargaining power. China watched closely, offering diplomatic service to peace while maintaining its strategic partnership with Moscow. For Zelensky, the stakes could not be higher, quite literally. A successful conversation might open a door to reconstruction funds, security guarantees, and eventual European Union accession talks. And on the other hand, a failure, unfortunately, could deepen Ukraine's isolation, demoralize its citizens, and embolden Russia's war machine. But just like everything in politics and life, with great power comes great responsibility. And the decisions you make will affect millions. Well, there you have it, guys. Once again, if you missed the previous episode of Thank God It's a Monday podcast with Paul from Combat Vet and React, once again, it is on my channel. Please go ahead and watch it. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe